Ren was an ugly loser who became homeless after he ran away from his abusive father. However, his tragic life changed when he became the butler for 3 rich sisters who want to spoil him rotten.
Yeah, boy.
For years, Ren and his sister, Mihato, lived a nightmare under their brutally abusive father. To save their lives, they ran away and took a train heading to the city, planning to live an Alabama sibling's life. So upon their arrival in the city, they immediately planned to look for live-in jobs. Mihato then spawns a camera from her assets, takes a photo of Ren, and tells him to not cheat on her. Later that day, Ren was turned away everywhere he went. And he ran away from his last potential employer after the guy tried to offer him a sausage cleaning position. As he walked around, drowning in depression, he came across a concert advert of a rich idol named Shinra, so he momentarily wondered if he should go audition for her broke love interest. Hours later in a park, a creep tried to rizz up Mihato, but she tells him that she already has her brother to clean up his pipe. Just then, Ren pops up and scares the creepy guy with his even creepier expression. They had to illegally camp outside like homeless losers. However, for dinner, Mihato makes instant noodles appear from his celestial gates and spinach from his balloons, much to Ren's amazement. While they slept, Ren dreamt of their old man using them as punching bags and jolted awake. However, seeing Mihato sleeping soundly beside him helped him relax, and he swore that he would always make her happy. The next day, while Ren was taking a break from job hunting, he saw a girl named Miyu walk past with a robotic egg assistant, but decided to ignore them. However, when he noticed she was about to pass out from heat stroke, he rushed over to help. Just then, his overprotective sister showed up, and when she found out he was helping a damsel in distress, she took Ren's backpack so he could carry Miyu properly. They wanted to take Miyu to a hospital, but she insisted they take her home instead and ordered her eggbot called De Niro to lead the way. Upon their arrival, Ren was shocked to see that she lived in a huge mansion. However, he nearly had a heart attack when her butler, who was built like Bruce Wayne, suddenly rushed forward, asking what had happened. As De Niro filled him and his assistant in on what happened, Mihato realized this was her and Ren's chance to get off the street. That night, the siblings had dinner with Miyu as she wanted to thank them for helping her. Ren happily stuffed his face, and when he complimented the food, the butler, who they referred to as Colonel, said it was made by the redhead maid standing next to him. Her name was Benis, and she was polite until Ren mentioned that Mihato's cooking was superior to hers. This led to them arguing, and when Colonel tried to intervene, Ren pushed the man out of the way, only to get kicked in return. Enraged, Ren tried to retaliate, so Colonel Man went all Kamehameha on him, sending him flying out an open window and into the fountain in the garden. As Ren pulled himself out of the fountain, he was shocked to find Shinrei, the famous idol, standing in front of him. It turned out that she was Miyu's older sister, and as he gawked at her like an idiot, Colonel showed up again. Ren immediately charged at the man again and was given a brain-resetting uppercut. Surprisingly, Ren passed out while still standing, making Shinra very interested in him. Later, he woke up in Mihato's lap, and she informed him that they had been hired as servants because she'd explained their situation to Shinra. Ren was surprised they were hired so easily, but Colonel explained there would be a 1-week probationary period to see if they're worth it or not. Afterwards, Shinra formally introduced them to Miyu, who was clearly her favorite but forgot about her other sister, Yume, which left her depressed. Other than them, there was Natose, Yume's personal butler, and Chiharu, who was too cute to be a boy. Colonel then told Ren that he expected him to do his best during his probation period, and Ren promised he would before celebrating with Mihato. The next day, Colonel assigned Mihato to serve Miyu, while Ren was told to help wherever needed. This made Ben Isu dub him the mansion's low-budget handyman, but when Mihato flicked her on the forehead, she apologized. She then advised Mihato to do a good job because Miyu really needed a personal maid. Dumb Ren was confused by the term personal maid, so he went outside to speak to Natose, but Yume interrupted them to say goodbye. As they watched her walk away, they heard Ben Isu saying Yume forgot her lunch, so Natose, the female Flash, rushed to take it to her. Almost immediately, Ben Isu came rushing past Ren, knocking him out of the way so she could see Shinra off. That was when Ren finally understood what Ben Isu meant by personal maid. That night, while Colonel entertained the girls with military stories, Ren slipped out unnoticed and found himself thinking about his abusive father. Remembering how Mihato had always protected him despite her own fear made him despise his own powerlessness. The next day, while Ren was cleaning, he curiously asked Miyu why she wasn't in school. She replied that she had already graduated from the university, and the boy screamed cap. Miyu expected that reaction since she looked like an undeveloped lolly, but she assured him that she wasn't lying. Later in the evening, Shinra tried to force Miyu to eat some dessert, but the girl resisted and got cream on her face. Ren tried to wipe it off, but Shinra hit him with a death glare, so he backed off in fear. She then licked the cream off Miyu's face and tried to feed her some more using her tongue. Thankfully, Mihato showed up at that moment and came up with an excuse to get Miyu and Ren out of the room. The two were almost brought to tears as they hugged their savior, but Shinra assured Mihato that she wouldn't be so lucky next time. After they left the room, Miyu told the brother and sister that Shinra liked to tease things she liked, warning them to be careful around her. Later that same night, a tired Ren was on his way to his room when he ran into Miyu wearing nothing but bottom plot covers. She wasn't even ashamed and began teasing him for being a prudish virgin, but the boy was far too shocked to speak, and after she walked into her room, he collapsed onto the floor. A while later, he went to the balcony for some air and found Natose there, so the two began talking about whether Ren had gotten used to the job. He told her that he wasn't sure because nothing in that mansion was normal, but Natose assured him that he would be fine. Over the next few days, Ren put in all his effort into doing his job despite facing some mishaps. On the 6th day, while he was rushing to school with Yume and Natose, he accidentally bumped into Yume's friend, Mistina. When he asked if she was hurt, Mistina handed him a card, advertising her services as a masochist for hire, and then crawled the rest of the way to school, like it was perfectly normal. Yume then introduced Ren to another classmate, Kei, and, to his surprise, the girl tried to feed him beef jerky. Natose quickly snatched it up, and as she ate it, another girl came running towards them like a racehorse. Her butler Kojiro wasn't far behind, but Ajeha scolded him for being late and then punched him. Apparently, it was a usual occurrence, and Ajeha revealed that the guy was her steward, Kojiro. Since Yume mentioned that Ren worked for her, Ajeha asked what special skill he had, making it very clear that she didn't think a scrawny guy like him could throw a punch. Feeling insulted, Ren decided to show off the fact that he was very attentive to detail by cleaning her shoes, and to seal the deal, he rizzed her up in the cringiest way possible. The tsundere quickly tried to hide her flusteredness by offering him some candy, and Yume praised Ren for a job well done. The next day, which was the last day of his probation, Ren was sweeping outside the front gate when Mistina suddenly showed up, scaring him. The freaky girl asked him to punish her for scaring him, but Kei saved him the trouble by kicking her on his behalf. She then explained that they were searching for a yellow ferret because finding it would earn their track club extra funding, so when Yume arrived, Ren promised to look out for the ferret. Coincidentally, he spotted the ferret shortly after he walked back through the gate and immediately began chasing it. The animal easily evaded capture and hid behind one of the vases inside the house. When Ren reached behind the vase, the terrified ferret bit him, which pissed him off. So without thinking, he tossed the vase aside and grabbed the ferret in a death-like grip. It wasn't until he heard the vase shatter that he came to his senses and realized that he was cooked. As expected, he pleaded with the sisters to forgive his mistake, and Yume tried to vouch for him. But Colonel said Ren's carelessness had caused the incident. Miyu agreed, and Shinra told him she would take his mistake into account when deciding whether to hire him. After the meeting, Ren went outside and cursed himself for losing his temper the way he did. However, he was more worried that he was exhibiting his father's violent traits. Just as he began spiraling into depression, Miyu and Natose walked over, and Miyu slapped him. She said it was her way of showing tough love and revealed that Mihato had spoken to Shinra on his behalf. Hearing this, he realized he was overthinking things and then rushed inside to finish his chores before bed. The next day, Shinra handed out the verdict. Mihato was to become Meiyu's personal maid permanently, and Ren had been forgiven for his mistake. However, he was asked to pick which girl he wanted to serve, and when he hesitated, Shinra declared that he would work for her, much to Benisu's annoyance. A few days later, Ren was riding with Colonel to pick Shinra up when a black car suddenly cut them off. Colonel took this personally, so he stepped on the gas and began reenacting Tokyo Drift. Thankfully, he was a good driver, so they arrived at the concert hall in one piece. Since they were a little early, Colonel advised Ren to go observe Shinra in her habitat. Watching her perform, Ren was captivated by her elegance and effortless command of the orchestra. When the rehearsal ended, he also saw how deeply the musicians respected her, making him admire her even more. After rejoining the butler, Ren admitted Shinra was amazing. Colonel agreed, but said she truly shined during live performances. Just then, Shinra walked out carrying a can of tea. After taking a sip, she casually handed it to Ren. Unsure what else to do, he drank the rest, claiming he was thirsty. Shinra saw right through him, forcing the embarrassed boy to admit he'd only done it because they had technically shared an indirect kiss. Shinra laughed at his innocence and promised she wouldn't stop teasing him. Later, at the mansion, Ren walked past Mihato in a daze, so she had to call out to him to get his attention. Ren turned to respond but heard Shinra's bell and rushed off to see what she wanted. Upon entering the room, he was shocked to find her in her plot covers and tried to leave, but she stopped him. She also told him that he didn't need to knock whenever she summoned him and said she wanted to reward him for his timely response. However, the reward only benefited her as she made him give her a massage. A few minutes in, she remarked that he knew how to use his hands, and the boy grew flustered. Shinra then teased him, saying she knew he was having wild thoughts, so he quickly apologized, but she assured him that she didn't mind. As he began stuttering, Mihato's voice suddenly drifted through the door, asking him to come help in the kitchen. So Ren rushed out without a second glance, and Shinra told herself she would enjoy having Ren as her plaything. Meanwhile, Ren arrived in the kitchen to find Mahito chopping carrots while Ben Isu was angrily plucking feathers from a chicken. Miyu, who was sitting at the table, told him that he could become her personal butler if he couldn't handle Shinra's teasing anymore. Ren didn't respond. Instead, he went to get some air on the balcony, but memories of Shinra teasing him assaulted his mind. The moment he admitted to himself that older girls were his type, Natose joined him and asked if he was feeling okay. Ren opened his mouth to speak, but then panicked when he saw the girl had no clothes on. He told her that he needed to take a shower and rushed off before Natose could tell him that Benisu was in the bathroom. So when he walked into the place, he met Benisu unpacking her melons and received the beating of a lifetime. The following day, when Ren went to tend to Shinra, he found her in bed with Miyu, so he did a 180. Miyu cried out for him to save her from her crazy sister, but Ren covered his ears and prayed for her to survive. A while later, she walked downstairs and collapsed into his arms, traumatized from what had happened in the room. He tried to comfort her, but was interrupted by Shinra, who approached them like a lioness on the hunt. At this point, Miyu had had enough, so she vowed to show Shinra that she couldn't always get her way and challenged her to something called the Kwanji flag. It was basically capture the flag, and whoever won could make the loser do whatever they wanted. Miyu swore she would win, then make Shinra act as her maid for a day, while Shinra plotted to do unspeakable cultured things to Miyu. As for Yume, she was only participating because they needed 3 teams. However, when the game kicked off, she realized that if she won, she could finally get the attention she wanted and decided to take it seriously. Hearing this, Natose and Shiharu went to scope out the enemies, so Yume was defenseless when Shinra pulled up with her team. Her attempt to defend her territory was futile, and Ren even let her try to retake her flag just to tease her. On their way back to their territory, Natose began chasing them, so Shinra instructed Ren to engage her. Ren knew he was no match for Natose, so after she punched him in the stomach, he pulled the vulnerable little brother card. To his surprise, it worked so well that Natose began to cry and apologize for hurting him. Deniro live streamed the entire encounter to Miyu, who then instructed Mihato to proceed with their plan. Mihato complied and went to confront Shinra and Ben Isu on their turf. Her words triggered Ben Isu, and when the maid tried to attack her, Mihato ran away. Shinra deduced it was a trick, but the hot-headed Ben Isu still chased after Mihato anyway and got captured with the help of some doves. Shinra arrived shortly after, and just as Mihato was about to tie her up as well, Ren jumped out of the bushes and snatched the flag away. Of course, Miyato let him go because he was her precious brother, but when he returned to his team's base, he found Deniro waiting for him with speakers. Before he could react, the mechanical egg unleashed an ultrasonic attack on Ren and then latched onto his leg, causing him to fall. Miyu decided to reveal herself at that point, but to her surprise, her flag was too heavy for her to lift. So Ren snatched it back and crawled to the flag holder despite Deniro and Miyu trying to stop him. In the end, he placed the flag in its rightful place, claiming victory for his team. That night, while Ren and Ben Isu served Shinra, she praised them for doing a good job and asked Ren to prove his loyalty to her by remaining as her butler. Ren tried to kiss her hand to pledge his loyalty, but Ben Isu screamed not to let his filthy lips touch her mistress. Ren had no choice but to comply, and after leaving the room, he decided to take a bath. This time, it was Colonel who was in the bathroom, and since Ren wasn't interested in his package, he tried to leave. But the man stopped him and said it was a good opportunity for some male bonding and undressed him before he could react. A few days later, Ren served Miyu some tea, but because they were chatting, she wasn't cautious and burned her tongue. Ren immediately apologized, but Miyu refused to listen and chased him around with a whip. In the end, Mihato gave her a popsicle to cool down and praised her for being a strong girl. Meanwhile, Ren got scolded by Colonel for causing injury to one of his masters. Shinra pointed out that it was Meiyu's fault for not being cautious enough, but she still believed that Ren was a failure as a butler. Her words broke Ren's last shred of confidence, but no one cared, and Colonel asked for permission to take him to Colonel training camp. Shinra gladly approved, and Shiharu, who was eavesdropping, rushed to tell the others. Mihato was upset that she wouldn't get to see her brother for a while, but Yume and Natose began imagining themselves having fun on the island. The moment Yume expressed her desire to push up the beach episode, Shinra walked in and announced that they were all going. A few days later, they arrived at the tropical beach, and while Ren was complimenting Yume's swimsuit, he got hit in the face by a deflated pool float. Shinra then ordered him to blow it up, and just as he finished, Miyato came running out of the house. Ren gave her his attention for a few seconds and then rushed off, causing Mihato to feel neglected as she watched him give his attention to Shinra. Just then, Miyu emerged from the house in a towel and demanded that Shinra tell her where her swimsuit was. Shinra smugly told her to give up on finding it and then pulled off Miyu's towel. Ren tried and failed miserably to avoid looking, but thankfully Miyu wasn't in her birthday suit. She just covered up because Shinra left a school swimsuit in place of her two-piece suit, and Shinra swore that she looked cute in it as she began teasing Miyu. She asked the others to go have fun, and Ren tried to take the lead, only to be stopped by the butler. The man reminded him that he wasn't there on vacation, and when he tried to complain, Ben Isu approached him to gloat. Eventually, Ren and Colonel left for the supposed training camp, and he was shocked to see that it was actually a cave. Apparently, the Kawanji family wasn't the only one who used it to train their butlers, and before they walked in, Colonel asked Ren to sign a waiver. It was written in English, and when he pointed out that he couldn't read it, the man assured him it was just a guest manifest, so he signed it. He was then led into the cave and was shocked to find Kojiro chained up and struggling to serve Aje. She even electrocuted him because she felt he was slow and began berating him for being a failure. Kojiro's self-esteem instantly dropped, and Ren thanked his stars that their positions weren't reversed. Suddenly, Kojiro cried out, but it was just his final adrenaline pump, and he passed out almost immediately. It was then that Aje noticed they had visitors, and Colonel asked if he and Ren could join their training. Aje agreed, so Colonel began with the basics, teaching Ren to make tea. When Ren tasted the finished product, his reaction was out of this world, so Colonel told him to recreate it. Ren assumed it would be easy peasy lemon squeezy, but the second he tried to pour the tea leaves into the pot, he got flicked on the head. The force of the hit sent him flying into the wall behind him, so he began complaining about employee safety. In response, Colonel held up the waiver he signed and revealed that he practically signed away his rights, and that, if he were to die, no one would be held responsible. Having no choice, Ren decided to lock in properly, and by evening, he was a tea-pouring machine. But that wasn't enough. Kojiro was also still suffering at Ajeha's hands, but he was pretty much a happy slave, so Ren paid him no mind. Instead, he told Colonel that he didn't need such physical training, but the man told him that all butlers must unlock their inner Sien. He then ordered him to do 300 push-ups while holding the tea tray. Ren complied, but all he could think of was how the girls were enjoying their vacation. He wasn't wrong because Yume was telling Chiharu scary stories and Shinra challenged Miyu to a drinking contest. As for Natose and Benisu, they were in a casino in town because Benisu liked risky games involving money. After her last win, Natose suggested she cash in her chips so they could head home, but the Mr. Krabs incarnate decided she wanted to go all in. The casino owner happened to see this, so he gave the dealer a signal, and the greedy Benisu didn't realize she was in trouble. Back at the cave, Ajeha sat on Ren's back until he completed his push-ups. She then commended him for pushing through and even gave him a glucose pill to boost his energy. A while later, he stepped out of the cave, wondering whether Ben Isu was taking care of Shinra's properly. What he didn't know was that the maid had just lost all her money and was about to make the biggest mistake of her life by accepting funds from the casino owner despite Natose's objections. When he returned to the house, he went to check on Shinra, but she woke up when he tried to tuck her in, and as an unrepentant teaser, she asked him to share his sausage and eggs with her, but Ren gave her a stuffed panda instead. He then went to enjoy some tea, but Miyato showed up, and they finally had some much-needed sibling time. She told him the girls missed him while he was training, prompting Ren to say he'd never expected that there would be a day when it wasn't just the two of them against the world. Eventually, he returned to the cave, and Colonel asked him to make another pot of tea. This time, Ren followed the butler's instructions to the T and successfully created a good cup of tea. He also made some kelp tea for Ajeha, and when Colonel asked why, he explained that it was to replenish her sodium supply since she perspired a lot. His discernment ability earned him another commendation from Ajeha, and she told him that she'd like to reward him. Ren declined the reward offer, saying he was fine with just seeing her smile, and the girl began blushing lightly. Colonel then informed him that he had graduated to entry-level butler, making Ren so happy that he rushed off to show his skills to his master. Later, while he was sucking up to Miyu and Shinra, they finally realized that Natose and Benisu hadn't come home. At that very moment, Benisu and Natose were forced into the casino owner's office, and he informed them that they would repay their debts using their bodies. Fortunately, he didn't mean literally, and the girls just had to wear costumes and work as waiters. Or so they thought, because the slimy old geezer suddenly informed them mid-shift that they were also expected to show their flexibility on stage. The new outfits he provided were even more scandalous than the ones they had on, and just as Ben Isu was about to chew him out, Shinra cut her off. She told the man that she was taking the girls away, and the man replied that it would cost her $1 million. Ben Isu immediately pointed out that she hadn't borrowed up to half of that, but the owner's guy roughly grabbed her, telling her to go entertain the guest. When Ben Isu fell, Ren and Natose tried to beat up the guy, but Colonel got in their way and said there was a more elegant way to settle things. That way was gambling, and the casino owner told him that if he lost, Shinra and the rest of the girls would join his workforce. On cue, Ren's mind began conjuring Gunnar-worthy material, so he urged Colonel not to lose to the wannabe Mafia Don. Shinra assured him that victory was theirs, and when the roulette wheel began turning, Colonel placed his bet on Red 9. By some twist of fate, the ball stopped on Red 14, making the owner think he had won. But then Colonel pulled some voodoo-type trick and moved the ball to red 9. Everyone began celebrating, and as Ben Isu hugged Shinra, the latter thanked Colonel for helping them. On their way home later, Ren scolded Ben Isu for risking it all for money, but she didn't care, and they continued arguing. The next day, Ren joined the girls at the beach, and Miyu asked him to rub some sunscreen on her back. While he was doing that, he accidentally touched her plots, and even though she didn't mind, De Niro chased Ren around with his drill to redeem his mistress's honor. To avoid being reshaped into a donut, Ren dove into the water and De Niro stood at the shore, cursing him since he couldn't get in. On the other hand, Yume called out to Ren, telling him that the water wasn't safe because monsters lurked in its depths. When Natsuo backed up her claim, Ren decided to tease them by pretending to be a seaweed monster. Yume began screaming at the top of her lungs, but instead of running, she kept kicking Ren. Everyone soon turned their attention to them, but Benshu noticed that a young girl was watching them. Later, when Ren and De Niro accompanied Ben Isu to the market, that same girl tried to steal Ren's wallet, but Ben Isu stopped her. The girl assumed she'd be punished, but Ben Isu surprised her by advising her to find another source of income and giving her a fruit. After the girl ran off, some random dude tried to hit on Ben Isu, and she responded with violence. Later at home, Colonel noticed Ren watching Ben Su, so he asked if he'd fallen for her overnight. Ren recounted what happened with the girl at the market, making it clear that he hadn't expected Ben Isu to let her go so easily. This prompted Colonel to reveal that Ben Isu had once been a street brat and that if the Kwanji family hadn't scouted her, her life might have taken a bad turn. Just as he finished his story, Ren heard Ben Isu telling Shinra that she was going into town, so he offered to accompany her. While they were in the market, they almost started arguing over pointless stuff when a commotion caught their attention. The Rizless guy had caught the street girl trying to steal from him, and he was determined to punish her. However, he began trembling when Ben Isu stepped up to confront him. Suddenly, his crew pulled up, and as a spineless wimp, he let them attack her on his behalf, only for Ben Isu to use them for a quick workout session. The only reason they didn't end up hospital prepped was that the guy threatened to harm the girl, so Bensu backed down and allowed them to take her with them. Ren was also taken along, and Ben Isu made sure to tell him how much of an idiot he was for allowing himself to get captured. He argued that he couldn't leave her alone, and Ben Isu shot back that this wasn't a Disney movie. Their captors soon got tired of their lovers' quarrel and tried to intimidate them, but got roasted instead. Ren even took it a step further, saying he stood in solidarity with all the girls they hit on. At this point, they had had enough, so they grabbed Ren and beat him up. After they left, Ben Isu scolded Ren for provoking them that much, but he said it was intentional. Realizing he'd done it to protect her, Ben Isu reminded him that she wasn't the type of girl who needed saving. She claimed she'd been fending for herself her entire life, so Ren turned the tables and reminded her that she now had a family who cared for her. Meanwhile, the young girl had gone to inform Shinra and the others about the kidnapping. Shinra then ordered everyone to get ready, as they were going to rescue Ren and Ben Isu. Back at the kidnapper's den, Ben Isu decided to tell Ren about how she had to be tough to survive the streets. She also taught herself to read, write, and cook, but the plot gods just wouldn't give her a big break. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Colonel showed up and took pity on her, but she repaid him by trying to steal from him. Surprisingly, he had expected that, and instead of punishing her, he asked her to tell him about her situation. After listening to her, he asked her to cook some dishes, and once he confirmed that they were good, he hired her as the Kwanji family chef. When she concluded her story, she released herself from the ropes binding her, but Ren was too weak to even move a muscle. She urged him not to pass out since they needed to find a way out, but Ren told her not to worry too much. At that moment, one of their abductors was leaving the bathroom when Nadose snuck up behind him and knocked him out. One of his friends felt he was taking too long and came looking for him, only to get strung up by Miyu and electrocuted by Denaro. Chiharu took out the third guy, and when Shinra walked in, she demanded they return Ren and Ben Isu to her. One of the remaining two guys tried attacking her, but Colonel blasted him away. Seeing this, the last guy tried to flee, but Mihato caught him and used her hairpin to avenge her brother. The group then went down to the basement, and Mihato switched back to Big Sister mode. Later, when they returned home, they found the young girl waiting for them. Ben Isu thanked her for alerting her friends, and Colonel offered her a job, which she gladly accepted. Days after they returned to Japan, Kei and Mistina came to pick Yume up for school and met Ren sweeping. As usual, Mistina began acting like the cultured freak that she was, and while Kei was disciplining her, Ren asked Yume if she had forgotten anything. Nadase told him that she personally prepared all Yume's school things the previous night. Yume then bade them farewell, but the moment she turned, the pair realized that Yume was commando underneath her skirt. Yume argued that she wasn't that forgetful, so Mistina double-checked on her behalf, leaving her very embarrassed. After she finally left with her friends, Nadase confided her worries about Yume to Ren. She believed the girl had become more clueless and dumb, but she couldn't figure out if it was causing it. Ren promised to get to the bottom of it, and Natose thanked him for being reliable. Just then, Ben Isu, the angry bird, came charging at them with another bento and hit Natose on the head. Apparently, Natose had given Shinra's lunch to Yume, so the girl snatched the box and chased after Yume. That night, when Ren came to bring Yume some steady snacks, he found her fast asleep and tried to wake her. But then her modified death note fell, and when Ren opened it, he got sucked into a world of Yume's delusions. In her story, the city was under attack by a bear monster, and when Ben Isu tried to flee, it cornered her. However, Shinra showed up just in time to save her and introduced herself as the protector of justice. Yume and Miyu also came, but since Miyu was the main character, she had an unnecessary glow. While she was speaking to Ben Isu, the bear woke up, so the sisters turned to face him. Shinra kicked him with her superpowered Valkyrie boots, but the bear blocked the attack. Seeing this, Miyu stepped in and attacked it with a rain of box cutters. The annoyed bear immediately retaliated with a beam and sent her flying, so it was left to Yume to bring the monster down. As the main character, she had to do the whole transformation thing, but what surprised Ren was that she had included a commercial mid-fight scene. Nevertheless, the fight continued, and when the bear saw that Yume was charging up her magic stick, it grew afraid. It then pleaded with her to spare its life and even tried to pay her. Yume accepted the money but said he still had to be punished for trying to rampage through the city like he was Godzilla. Hearing this, the bear tried to run, but Yume unleashed her attack, and it was consumed almost immediately. Once the drama was over, people gathered to cheer for Yume, and her sisters declared that she had surpassed them in every way. Yume assured them that, with hard work, they could become like her. And then she started laughing. At that point, Ren had had enough, so he closed the book and wondered just how delusional the girl was. The next moment, Yume woke up and freaked out when she saw Ren holding her Yume note. When she calmed down, he advised her to speak with everyone so they could help her find her personality. He was so hyped about it that Yume agreed on the spot, and the next day, he gathered everyone to begin his plan. Mihato asked Yume whether she had a special skill, and Yume said she knew how to pick mushrooms. Natose added that she could tell which was poisonous at a glance, but Ben Isu claimed that wasn't so special. Mihato then suggested that she become the cute character, but Ben Isu, the hater, accused Mihato of trying to create a minion. In response, Mihato karate chopped her head, showing her that she could be mean if she wanted to. Natose then suggested that Miyu show Yume how to act cute. Miyu happily gave a demonstration, but Shinra told her to stop embarrassing their ancestors. Someone else then suggested that Yume become a delinquent, so the girls demonstrated how delinquents behaved, but Yume said it was too hard. Every other suggestion was shot down after that because Yuma felt that Shinra embodied each character flawlessly. Eventually, she ran away crying and went to sit in the garden. There she decided that she'd just be the character everyone ignored. But then Chiharu suddenly appeared behind her and told her not to take his crown. Yume was surprised to see him, and after they spoke for a few minutes, she realized that Chiharu was the perfect definition of a background character. She then told him that she envied how well he embodied his character, but that just made the boy cry, and Yume joined him in solidarity. Ren and Natose arrived at that moment, but Ren told Natose to let them be, promising that they would find another solution to Yuma's problem. Later, in Yuma's room, the two advised her not to push herself too hard. Ren said that allowing her personality to develop naturally was the best option she had. He also said she had the most charisma among her sisters and that she was the one he wanted to serve the most. Yume perked up at this and asked her companions to imagine the sun, saying that she often did that to remind herself that her problems weren't as big as it. Hearing Yume sound so smart surprised them, so they complimented her. Yume asked Natose to remain at her side as she grew into her character, and Natose promised to do so. Realizing he was the third wheel, Ren decided to leave, but Yume called out to him to thank him. She also surprised him with a kiss on the cheek, and before he could recover from the shock, Natose kissed his other cheek. Meanwhile, in Shinra's room, she got off the phone and informed Ben Isu that there was going to be a new addition to their family. The maid jumped in surprise, but Shinra remained composed and said she was looking forward to seeing how things turned out. A few days later, Ren tried to wake Shinra, but she pulled him into bed with her and stuffed her exposed plots in his face. She was clearly asleep, but the cultured boy liked the position and would have remained there if he hadn't felt Ben Isu's deathly glare on him. During breakfast later, she served him a few grains of rice, but he couldn't complain because Natose suddenly announced that intruders were approaching. When they went outside, they saw helicopters and cars carrying military personnel entering their property. Colonel was the one who went to greet them, prompting Ren to assume that the guests were his old military buddies. However, Shinra revealed that the true guest was Yume's friend, which confused the girl. The next moment, another convoy pulled up to the premises, and everyone was shocked to see Ajeha. After her dramatic self-introduction, she ordered her men into the house, and a while later, they had transformed the guest room into a Japanese-style bedroom. She then bowed before them and said she would be in their care for a while. Ren and Benshu were the only ones who responded to her, and when they realized it, they demanded answers. Colonel explained that Ajeha had seriously hurt Kojiro during training and would need about 3 months to fully recover. So her father decided that she needed to learn self-restraint and contacted Colonel to help him deliver the training. Shinra had agreed to take her in since Colonel and Ajeha's father were old acquaintances, but she hadn't expected Ajeha to renovate their home. The rude brat assured her that her family would cover the restoration costs, but Miyu and Ben Isu said the money wasn't the issue. Of course, Ajeha cut them off before they could begin the life lesson lecture she'd asked her people to bring in the gifts, or rather bribes, she'd prepared for them. Ben Isu got baseball tickets, Natose got meat, Yume got ice cream, and Shinra got 3 panda cubs. Even Colonel got gold bars, and Miyu, who claimed she wasn't easily swayed, forgave Ajeha's rudeness when she saw that the girl had prepared a boy band for her. Mihato and Ren were the only ones who didn't make Santa's list, but they didn't mind. Mihato then asked Ajeha who would be her butler for the time being, and she revealed that it was Ren. Refusing to believe her, Ren rushed to confirm with Shinra, and the girl admitted that she had rented him out to Ajeha. She didn't even look at him when she said it, as all her attention was on her 3 cubs, making Ren feel worthless. Left with no choice, he went to report for duty at Ajeha's camp and prepared some tea for her. The girl took just 1 sip and punched him hard, saying it tasted like warm piss. She didn't stop there, and by the time Ren made the perfect batch, he looked like he'd been involved in an accident. Still, that didn't stop Ajeha from giving him her punch reward. The next day, Ren went to pick Ren up from school, and she informed him that they would begin training that day. When they got home, she went to change, but Ren accidentally walked in on her and got poked in the eyes for it. After he recovered, she jumped out the window and instructed him to follow her. At this point, Ren was already getting tired, so he prayed that Kojiro would recover quickly and come pick up his crazy master. But in the meantime, he had no choice but to train with Ajeha, and the girl was merciless. After the training, Mihato tended to Ren's injuries and kept complaining about how he was being treated inhumanely. Ren assured her that it was nothing compared to what he faced at their father's hands, but she knew he was just acting tough. So she hugged him and told him she would always be there for him, which made him feel relaxed. Over the next few days, Ajeha had Ren train as if they were going to run a marathon. One particular day, they halted their training to help an old woman who was about to be isekai'd by a bike, and this made Ren see Ajeha in a different light. Out of curiosity, he asked what her family business was, and she told him they were one of the world's top 3 conglomerates. She was the heir to the steel division, and she'd been training all her life so she could be a worthy leader. Ren complimented her dedication, and when he began slipping in some Riz actions, she grew flustered and flipped him onto the ground. As she began walking away, Ren told himself that she was true tsundere and then followed her. That night, Colonel instructed Natose to be extra vigilant as he wouldn't be home until later. As he drove off, some weird-looking guys popped up from behind a tree and turned their attention to the mansion. They were convinced that Natose wasn't a threat, but the moment they put on their night vision goggles, they realized how wrong they were. The girl was practically radiating a dangerous aura, and they weren't sure whether to go in. In their moment of hesitation, Ajeha sensed them, so when Ren came to check on her, he saw that she jumped out the window. He quickly went after her because she was only in a towel, but Ajeha didn't slow down. Even when Natose tried to stop her, she stubbornly pushed forward. The intruders were still plotting how to go about their attack when Ajeha showed up and knocked them out with 1 strike each. When Ren finally caught up with her, she tried to do her victory pose, but then her towel fell, and since he didn't avert his gaze, she kicked him as punishment. Later, while she was putting on the robe Ren brought, she told him that the intruders were assassins sent by a rival company. Ren was shocked, but the next moment, one of the guys tried to take Ajeha with a tranquilizer dart. Ren rushed to act as her shield, but Ajeha ended up saving him instead. She then threw the dart back at the guy, but Ren was too shocked to even speak. Eventually, they left Natose to tie up the guys, and on the way back to the house, Ajeha apologized to Ren for dragging him into her mess. To her surprise, he was more concerned about the fact that assassins were targeting her. Ajeha just smiled and told him to show her his loyalty, so he knelt and kissed her hand. However, that wasn't enough for her because she pulled him up and kissed him. After she let go, Ren cried, saying she'd stolen his first kiss and that made her feel proud of herself, even though that was also her first kiss. The next day, during breakfast, Miyu noticed that Ajeha's presence in their home was causing chaos and told herself she needed to do something about it. So she went to see Shinra, who was snuggled in bed with her pandas, and told her they needed to talk. Shinra began teasing her as usual, but Miyu insisted that the matter was serious and told her to come find her after she put on some clothes. Meanwhile, Ren was walking Yume and Ajeha to school when they heard Kojiro's voice. Looking around, they saw him kneeling at the school gate, and he told Ajeha that he had come to resume his duties. Ren happily handed Ajeha's bag to her, but she surprised everyone by telling Ren that she would see him after school, so he sympathized with the heartbroken Kojiro. Later in the day, while Miyu and Shinra were having tea, Miyu urged Shinra to do something about Ajeha because the girl's presence was a problem, but Shinra just brushed it off. She then asked Colonel to fetch Ren, but he informed her that he'd gone to pick up Ajeha, and Shinra's mood dampened. Coincidentally, Ren had just arrived at the school and was surprised to find Kojiro still kneeling in the same spot. The boy told Ren that Ajeha had changed and tried to find out if anything had happened in the Kwanji mansion. Ren panicked because he couldn't tell him about the kiss, so he assured Kojiro that Ajeha was still the same violent hellhound he had grown up with. Those words rekindled Kojiro's hope, and he began thanking Ren for taking care of Ajeha while he was in the hospital. A few moments later, school let out, and when Kojiro saw Ajeha, he knelt like a loyal dog and asked if she was ready to head home. Ajeha simply patted his head and told him to go without her, and the boy went into shock. It wasn't until she walked away with Ren that he realized she hadn't even punched him once. Later, at the Kwanji mansion, Ajeha and Ren were training, but Ajeha felt his punches were weak. She got behind him and positioned his arms properly, but it was the feel of her plots that motivated him to do the right thing. Surprisingly, she tried to reward him with a kiss on the cheek, but the boy panicked and began moving around to avoid her lips. Naruse, who was watching them, told herself that Ren had become stronger since he began training with Ajeha, but she couldn't tell him because they hadn't spent time together since Ajeha's arrival. After Ren and Ajeha settled down, he asked if she had a special dinner request, and she told him that she wanted to eat a meal he prepared. The meal was a disaster, but everyone ate it, except Ben Isu, who cursed Ren for defiling the sacred art of cooking. Before going to bed, Ren checked on Ajeha, who gave him some books to read. When he thanked her, she told him to do it properly, so the boy kissed her and then ran away like a scared chicken. Unknown to them, Kojiro was standing in the yard staring up at Ajeha's window, and ended up spending the night there. Ajeha and Ren didn't even notice him as they trained, breaking rocks and tiles. Ajeha told Ren he had improved, then asked him to give her the token of loyalty. Ren leaned in almost immediately, but when images of the Shinra and the others flashed in his mind, he hesitated. Seeing this, Ajeha grabbed his face and kissed him before he could pull away completely. Kojiro happened to push the rock that had landed on him away at that moment, and he went crazy when he saw them kissing. As far as he was concerned, Ren had initiated the kiss, so he began attacking him. It took Ren a few seconds to process what was happening before he defended himself. They then spent a few minutes doing the whole P fight back and forth, and when they finally decided to clash, Colonel intervened. Surprisingly, when Ajeha approached them, Ren was the one who got punched because apparently Kojiro wasn't worthy of being punished by her. She told him that he had committed a grave atrocity by storming her host family's estate, so she wanted him to return home and stay there until further notice. Kojiro accepted her decree, but when she mentioned that she wasn't returning home because she had grown fond of Ren, he protested. He said he would only leave if Ren could prove he was a better butler. If Ren failed, he wanted Ajeha to consider returning home. Before Ajeha could respond, Shinra spoke up and accepted the duel. They were to compete in 3 categories. The first was a stamina match to see who could carry out their master's orders tirelessly. Ren almost failed right off the bat because Ben Isu was acting as the master, but then he decided to lock in. Ben Isu made sure that all the luggage Ren carried was unnecessarily huge and heavy. Despite that, he still moved faster than Kojiro, who had less luggage and ended up whining. However, the girls shamed him for showing off against someone who had just recovered from major injuries. They then moved on to the second match, which tested their attentiveness to their master's needs. For every need they guessed right, they would receive a point, and if they guessed wrong, they would lose a point. Unfortunately for Ren, the girls were determined to make him lose, so he ended up with -1 point while Kojiro got 4. When it was time to get ready for the next round, Kojiro swayed a bit, and Ajeha was the only one who noticed, so she kept a close eye on him. The third match was a trivia game, and as the girls cheered for Kojiro, Ren noticed the guy was shaking. When he passed out, everyone realized that he had run away from the hospital because of Ajeha. So, to ensure his full recovery, Ajeha told him she would return home, which made everyone happy. The next day, things at the mansion returned to normal, but the sisters made Ren suffer a bit just for the fun of it, and when he thought he could finally catch a break, Chiharu asked him to come sweep the entrance. Meanwhile, Ajeha was in the hospital with Kojiro, but she told herself that she hadn't given up on Ren. Days later, Miyu informed Ren that he would be her personal butler for a while and asked him to keep track of her schedule. When he asked what she had lined up for the day, she told him she was guarding the house, which made him wonder just what she did every day. The next day, when he clocked in for his new position, he almost removed his eyes because Miyu was in her birthday suit. Mihato, on the other hand, wasn't bothered by the sight of the plotless lolly and went about doing her job. A few minutes later, Meiyu was clean and dressed, and Ren couldn't help but notice how both girls complimented each other. The rest of the day went relatively smoothly since Miyu didn't have much to do, and at night, she asked him to help her bathe. This request left Ren extremely flustered, but he composed himself and went to help Meiyu bathe. By the time he finished, he was physically and mentally tired, so Meiyu let him go for the night. When he got to his room, He passed out as soon as his body hit the bed, so Mihato changed his clothes and tucked him into bed properly. The following day was just as uneventful as the previous one, but this time Ren helped Meiyu bathe without feeling embarrassed. However, when it was time for bed, Meiyu told him that she wanted them to strengthen their bond as master and servant, and that was how he ended up in bed with her and Mihato. She then cuddled against him and asked her to tell her what his dream was, and Ren replied that he just wanted to live happily with Mihato. Meiyu assured him that his dream would be fulfilled as long as he remained in her service, and Ren thanked her. Suddenly, he grew shy under her gaze, and that was the first time he admitted to himself that Meiyu was a grown woman. He then asked about her dream, but Meiyu had already fallen asleep. A few minutes passed, and Ren realized that he couldn't fall asleep, and as he began wondering whether he should count sheep, Meiyu moved closer to him. For some reason, he decided to poke Miyu's chest and got caught by Mihato, who woke up. He begged her not to snitch, claiming the hormone monster had possessed him, but Mihato didn't believe him. She said naughty boys needed to be punished, and Ren's reaction said it all. The following morning, Meiyu noticed that Yuma looked sad, so she asked what was wrong. Yuma explained that she was having trouble finishing her assignment, so Meiyu offered to help. While they were still discussing it, Shinra showed up and began teasing Meiyu for acting like a big sister. The two got so caught up in their exchange that they didn't notice Yume leaving until she said goodbye. Shinra felt bad, but then Colonel came to get her, and she pushed those thoughts aside. Later, while Meiyu was in the garden with Mihato, Ren walked into the kitchen to find De Niro trying to get the rice cooker pregnant. Natose and Benisu were also there, but since they didn't do anything, Ren smacked the cultured egg out of the way. This pissed it off, and it began complaining about how Ren was invading his privacy. Ren pointed out that there was nothing private about what he was doing, but the egg didn't care. It even swiped Ren's phone and declared it was his new lover, which annoyed Ren. That was the moment Benisu said she'd seen enough, and after she walked away, Natose and Ren began chasing De Niro. As soon as they stepped into the hallway, Meiyu cracked her whip on the floor and said they had disgraced her, so they needed to be punished. She chased them around the house, and Ren soon began blaming De Niro for his misfortune. When they made it to the first floor, De Niro lost power, so Ren grabbed him and went to plug him in. By the time he was fully recharged, Meiyu had already dealt with Ren, so De Niro began thanking him for saving him. Ren grabbed him to stop him from moving, but then the bot suddenly made a sound. According to him, Meiyu had just received some money, which confused Ren, as all Meiyu did was laze about. De Niro immediately rebuked him for saying that and revealed that Meiyu was a genius scientist with patents for numerous inventions, so she didn't have to work for money. This revelation changed the way Ren saw Meiyu, so he went to the kitchen to speak to her. However, he never got the chance because she recruited him to be their kitchen assistant. Meanwhile, Yume was out back with Natose, and she told her that she hadn't turned in her career option form. She said it was because she didn't have a dream and tried to brush it off as unimportant, but Natose wouldn't let her. She assured her that everyone had a dream, and that Yume just hadn't figured hers out yet. Later, when Ren went to serve Meiyu some tea, he found her watching Shinra's interview. The interviewer had asked Shinra about her father, and she said he was the person she respected most. Ren quietly admitted he was envious that he didn't have a father he could respect, but Meiyu still heard him. When the interview concluded, Ren pointed out that Shinra had been overly serious, and Meiyu joked that it was because the interviewer had only asked about their dad. When Shinra returned home later, she interrupted her sister's video game to scold them for not thinking about their futures. Meiyu argued that she already had her future on lock and even dropped her share of the month's expenses before storming out of the room. Her outburst had been unexpected, so Shinra grew worried and began wondering what was wrong. Thanks to that, she didn't hear Yuma speaking to her about getting a part-time job, so the girl just locked up. Mihato then joked about Meiyu becoming a delinquent, but Benisu said she looked more like the rockstar type. Their words triggered Shinra's anger, so she tried to go to Meiyu and get answers, but Ren blocked her path. He told her not to dismiss Miyu's behavior as nothing and said Meiyu had been working hard on her dreams. His words seemed to work like magic because when Shinra went to speak with Meiyu, she was more reasonable, and the two reconciled. Later, during dinner, Yume announced that she was getting a part-time job, but Shinra just dismissed it with a lame, encouraging statement. She then turned her attention to Meiyu, and soon enough, everyone at the table did the same. Seeing this, Yume quietly left, but Natose noticed and went to find her in her room. This time, Yume broke down, and as Nanase hugged her, she asked why Shinra only cared about Meiyu, but Nanase didn't have the answer. The next night, Nanase suggested that Yume speak to Shinra about her feelings, and Yume agreed. When she walked into Shinra's room, she found her embracing Ren, but the boy quickly detached himself from her. Shinra then asked why Yume had come when it was Meiyu she requested to see, and Yume couldn't hide her hurt. Nevertheless, she pushed herself to question Shinra's biased affection for Meiyu. Shinra was surprised and apologized for making Yume feel like an extra in their family's story. She admitted that she had always wanted to tease and embrace Yume the same way she did Meiyu, but had stopped herself because of something Yume said years ago. Now, it was Yuma's turn to be surprised. As she could recall the incident Shinra was talking about, Shinra tried to refresh her memory by telling her that she'd said it at their parents' funeral, but Yuma still couldn't remember. That day had been very emotional, and all she'd been thinking about was her parents. That admission seemed to piss Shinra off, and she accused Yume of thinking lowly of her before signaling Ren to escort her out of the room. The next day, Ren told Miyu what had gone down with her sisters, and Yume joked that the gap between her and Shinra was now galaxy-wide. Ren told her not to be so negative, but Yuma didn't see how the problem could be resolved if she didn't remember what she said at the funeral. Just then, Benisu almost tripped over Yume, and even though she apologized, she claimed that she hadn't seen Yume there. She then asked why Yume was digging a hole, but before Yume could respond, Benisu called out to Shinra, warning her about the 2-inch deep hole. Shinra announced that she was returning inside, but Yume ran up to her and tried to apologize for the things she couldn't remember. Her sister told her that the apology didn't count as long as she didn't remember, so Yume ran away crying. Natose immediately chased after her, but Yume refused to open her door, saying she wanted to be alone. That night, Yume didn't come down for dinner, and unlike Shinra, Natose couldn't act like she didn't care. She stood up from the table without touching her food, which was very out of character. Later, Natose took some food to Yume, but when she opened the door, she found the room empty. She immediately reported this to the family, and Benisu thought it was a nice idea to make a joke about Yume being insignificant. Ren called her out for being insensitive, but Ben-Isu defended her statement, so Mihato flicked her hard on the forehead. This almost led to a brawl, but they called it off when they heard Natose blaming herself for Yume's disappearance. Shinra tried to calm her down, but Natose didn't listen and ran out after declaring that she would bring Yume back. Everyone else followed her, but Ren was surprised to see that Shinra didn't move from her spot, so she decided to confront her. He asked whether her anger was more important than her sister, and told her that if Yume never returned, she would regret acting as she did. Still, Shinra refused to change her mind, so he tugged at her conscience, reminding her that her sisters were all she had. He even said he'd give anything for his father to act right for even a second and asked why Shinra wanted to ruin her family. When Shinra didn't respond, Miyu approached Ren and told him to leave Shinra to her while he went to join the search for Yume. When he got outside, he ran into Natose sniffing around like a dog, and to his surprise, she managed to catch Yume's scent. In no time, she tracked her to a restaurant in the city, and after their emotional reunion, Yume ordered some dumplings to go because Natose's stomach growled. They then went to the place Yume said was one of Shinra's favorite spots, and Yume told Ren that she wished she and Shinra were closer. Ren assured her that it could still happen, and Yume replied that she hoped so. Eventually, Natose finished her meal, and when she began looking at the stars, Ren asked if she was searching for her home planet. Natose explained that it was her way of updating her family on her life. When she was younger, a tsunami had hit her home island, and she was the sole survivor of her family. She blamed herself for failing to save them, and neither Ren nor Yume knew how to tell her that it was beyond her control. Meanwhile, Shinra was pacing around back at the mansion since no one had called to update them. Miyu said they had forgotten their phone, but then Shinra got mad at her for being so calm. Instead of arguing, Miyu reminded her that she was the cause of the problem, so she ran to her room. There, she tried and failed to concentrate on work, which worried Benisu, so she went to speak to Colonel about it. He told her that they could only watch and hope that Shinra would try to fix things with her sister. Back in town, Natose told Yume that she was the one who helped her overcome her grief and motivated her to do better, which was why she was willing to do anything to protect Yume, and had been hurt when Yume turned her away earlier. She then said that Shinra felt the same way about Yume and urged her to remember what she'd said at the funeral. Yume agreed, and she began recounting what had happened that day. She and Miyu had been visibly upset, but Shinra showed no reaction. So when she tried to reach for Yume later, the girl backed away in fear and said Shinra was like a robot. Back in the present, Shinra finally admitted that she didn't know how to explain to Yuma that she hadn't cried because she didn't want them to think she wasn't dependable. Miyu then explained that at that moment, Yume probably felt as though she also lost her sister, so Shinra couldn't blame her. She urged Shinra to be the bigger person and talk things out with Yume, as that was the only way they could fix their bond. Back in the city, Yume told Ren and Natose that she didn't think Shinra would forgive her, but Nata said anyone could make mistakes. She also said that Yume wouldn't know how Shinra truly felt if she didn't try to apologize, so she agreed to do it. When she returned home, she ran straight to Shinra's room, and when she tried to embrace her, Shinra slapped her for making her worry. She then embraced Yume, and the two began their heartfelt reconciliation. After they pulled apart, Yuma realized she was standing on Shinra's music sheets, so she began apologizing, but Shinra wasn't angry. Days later, Chiharu was hanging out in the park when a ball suddenly hit him, forcing him to spill his milk. When those responsible showed up, they began bullying him instead of apologizing, and even tried to take his money. Thankfully, Ben Esu showed up and scared them away, making Chiharu very grateful. So later, He invited Ren to bathe with him so he could tell him about the incident. But Ren couldn't see past his feminine face and ran out of the bathroom in just his boxer shorts. As he tried to calm himself, Benisu showed up out of nowhere and kicked him in the crotch for violating the indecency policy. The next day, Ren was sweeping the entrance with Chiharu when a paper plane nearly took his eyes out. It was a message from Ajeha saying she would attend the flower-watching festival with the Konji family. Ren wondered why she didn't just text like a normal person and asked Chiharu if he was excited about the festival. Chiharu didn't respond as he was lost in thought, and when Ren finally caught his attention, he made up an excuse to leave. Ren just stood there, wondering what was wrong until Mistina suddenly popped up behind him, saying he was clueless. Confused, Ren asked her to explain, but she refused, prompting him to speak the only language she understood, degeneration. The next moment, Mistina was dressed in a dog suit from God knows where, and as she wagged her bum, she told Ren that Chiharu was in love. She said the person lived in the mansion and that if she was wrong, Ren was free to punish her. Later, when Chiharu went to meet Yume, Natose, and Ren to plan the flower festival, Ren confronted him about the love thing. The shocked boy asked how he found out, and the idiot said something about him not knowing how to mind his own business. He then urged Chiharu to tell him who he was in love with, and Yume became hopeful, thinking she was the lucky girl. To everyone's shock, Chiharu admitted it was Benisu. Initially, they assumed he was clowning, but they swore he wasn't. So they began questioning what they saw in a walking red flag like Benisu. Chiharu listed a few things, and even though they still couldn't understand why, they promised to be his wingman. Yume suggested inviting Ben-Isu somewhere, and knowing who she was, Ren made sure Chiharu took Ben-Isu to a baseball game. During the game, Ben-Isu kept talking about Ren, and when Chiharu couldn't take it anymore, he asked if Ren lived rent-free in her head. Ben-Isu admitted she was attracted to Ren, but asked Chiharu not to tell him so he wouldn't get the wrong idea. Chiharu promised, then began cheering for their team, but he was crushed inside. The next day, Ren ran into Chiharu in the hallway, and he asked Chiharu how his date had gone. Chiharu claimed that the vibe was off and that he was giving up, which confused Ren. When he tried to push Chiharu for a better explanation, Ben-Isu turned the corner and began fussing over Ren's sloppy dressing. Watching her made Chiharu even more convinced that taping out was the best decision, so he announced that he was going to clean. Later that week, the gang had a picnic at the Sakura Garden, and Shinrei decided to overindulge in some booze. Feeling left behind, Aje had tried to show off by drinking a whole barrel of milk, but Yume was the only one who cared. The others, like Miyu and Dinero, were too busy eating or admiring the flowers. Eventually, Mihara called everyone's attention and announced that they would play games. Since she couldn't decide which one, she asked Natose to start them off by impersonating an American. Natose was a bit shy, but once she started, she really got into character, even though she mixed Japanese and English words. By the time she finished, everyone was looking at her like she was cray-cray, so she apologized to Yume for disgracing her. De Niro then tried to salvage the situation by performing an original song, but he sounded worse than a dying cat and almost made everyone deaf. Ren managed to snatch the mic away from him, and when he began complaining, Miyu told him to stop acting like a spoiled brat. De Niro apologized, and when she realized that he called her mum, she got pissed. Shinra's timely announcement that she and Miyu were up next was what saved him from becoming scrap metal. Miyu had no idea what Shinra meant, but she knew she couldn't say no. The presentation turned out to be cosplay, and despite her initial reservations, Miyu ended up enjoying herself. When they finished, Ajeha took the stage, and after Kojiro set up a thick steel pole, she began kicking it to show off her martial arts skills. Or so they thought, until Natose pointed out that she was actually sculpting a statue. The finished product was Kojiro, and the boy was moved to tears because he believed she had finally seen his worth. Only to be proven wrong when she destroyed the statue with one kick. Sadly, he couldn't mourn his insignificance because Ajeha told him it was time to show off his skills. However, as he began preparing what he called the ultimate move, Ajeha kicked him into the air, saying it was too dangerous. As he fell back down, she opened an umbrella, which he landed on and began spinning. Suddenly, some cried out for help because she'd been robbed, so Ajeha ordered Kojiro to help her. Miyu also instructed Colonel and Ren to assist him, while De Niro fired spikes at the thieves to slow them down. The spikes only hit one of the guys, so Kojiro and Ren took the second one down together. As for the third guy, he stopped in his tracks when he saw the butler, and the man lectured him on how bad stealing was. He then took him to the men's bathroom and beat him into unconsciousness because he got carried away. After they were tied up, everyone around praised Ren and the others, and they even got the picture taken by a journalist. Later, on their way home, Mihato noticed that Ren was too quiet, so she asked what was bothering him. He explained that he was just relieved to know that they had a place they could finally call home. Mihato agreed and said they had to do their best to ensure the girls were happy, as it wouldn't have been possible without them. A few days later, Ren and Mihado's father came across their picture in the newspaper and remarked that he had finally found them. Meanwhile, Ren was in the mountains with Shinra and panicked when she took off her leggings. This made her call him a prude, but she still handed him the leggings to put in the car while she played in the water. Ren complied, then asked Colonel whether the area belonged to the Kuonji family, since no one else was around. The man said Shinra had purchased it herself as part of her nature preservation scheme, and Ren was impressed. Just then, Shinra called out to him, so he went to join her in the water, and she revealed that she often came there when she wanted to relax. She then began moving her hands as though she were conducting, and Ren became mesmerized. The next day, when Ren came out to the balcony, he saw that Nadase and Colonel were passing energy balls back and forth. This made him recall the past when his father was still nice and used to play with him. He was so lost in the memory that he didn't see the energy ball until it knocked him down. Later, he went to wake Shinra and was surprised to find her harassing Benisu. After she got ready, she went downstairs and began harassing Miyu, who had just finished working out, and despite the girl's complaints, she didn't leave her alone. Miyu's only saving grace was that Ben Isu and Ren came to tell Shinra that they had to go to work. They then escorted her outside, and Ren wished her luck since her concert was fast approaching. Shinra thanked him and admitted she needed all the luck she could get, since her mentor would be attending the concert. That night, while everyone was doing their own thing, Ren found Shinra in the piano room, and she invited him to pour her a drink. She seemed happy, and when he asked if something had happened, she told him she was just proud of Colonel he had become. She admitted she had doubts about him thanks to his impulsiveness, but he had proven himself. Hearing her praise him didn't sit right with Ren, so he told her that she had the wrong idea about him. However, he didn't explain why and switched the topic to her dad. Shinra didn't mind and told him that her father was the best person she knew. The more she talked about him, the angrier Ren grew until he couldn't hold it in anymore and opened up about his father. He said the man was a deadbeat loser whose favorite activity was beating him up, and he hated him for it. Despite that, he still wanted the man to at least acknowledge him, but everything he did only pissed the man off. Ren then said the only reason he knew how to adapt was that he had to learn to survive without his father. As far as he was concerned, he was nothing but a weakling, but Shinra disagreed. She said the weak one was his father, and the best thing the man had done was prepare Ren to become the best butler to her. That statement pushed Ren to his limit, and as he began to cry, he thanked Shinra and promised to continue serving her from the bottom of his heart. So the next day, Shinra announced that Ren would be her personal butler until she said otherwise. Yume immediately protested because he was supposed to serve her next. Miyu accused Shinra of abusing her authority. Nevertheless, they knew she wouldn't change her mind, so they wished Ren luck because they knew he would need it. A while later, Shinra left for work with Ren, and they went over her schedule during the drive to the concert hall. Shinra had a very busy day, and after her final event, she asked Ren if he was tired, and he assured her that he wasn't. On the ride home, he sat awkwardly next to her, so to help himself relax, he asked what type of person her mentor was. Shinra answered that he was a strict man with a strong love for music. However, she fell asleep before she could tell him more, and Ren allowed her to use him as a pillow. When they arrived home later, she rushed to fawn over her sisters, and they allowed her. Ren just watched them until Mihata joined him, and he told her that Shinra was a superwoman because she always made time for her family despite her busy schedule. Later that same night, Ren went to drop off some snacks for Shinra and urged her not to overexert herself. She assured him that she wouldn't and dismissed him for the night. A few days later, Shinra held her concert, and after the show, she met with her mentor, who didn't give her good feedback. He said the music didn't resonate with him, and that pissed Ren off. He began chewing the man out, but Shinra was too lost in thought to care. The following day, she was still in the dumps, but she tried to push forward by studying her music sheets. When Ren came to find her, she asked him to leave her alone, but he ignored her words. Instead, he invited her on a date and said that a change of scenery would do her some good. He also joked that her serious face would scare the concertgoers, and a memory flashed through her mind. That day, her mentor told her that her music was good because she enjoyed it. Shinra then smiled and agreed to the date, since he had reminded her of what she was missing. They went around town acting like a couple, and Shinra enjoyed herself to the fullest. It wasn't until they visited a photo booth that people recognized Shinra and began asking to take photos with her. Later, she and Ren went to her favorite spot, and she told him that their outing had reminded her of her days as a music student. Ren then felt the moment was right to move closer, but he chickened out at the last second. Suddenly, Shinra asked if he wanted to go home, but he said he wanted to enjoy their date a little more. Since the plot gods were on his side, the air grew windy, so he put his jacket on her and stood behind her. Shinra didn't mind, so he grew bolder and began telling her how much he admired her. He also said some other stuff, which put her in her feelings, but Shinra suddenly lashed out at him. She claimed he wouldn't understand why she always had to be strong and in charge, and when he tried to explain, she went to the car. Colonel then advised Ren to cool off before trying to speak to her again, so he began walking home. Unfortunately, he ran into his old man, and the two began exchanging words. When the man realized he was losing, he decided to play dirty and told Ren that his mom had died because of him, which made the boy completely lose his temper. The next day, Ren went to bring Shinra her milk tea, but she wasn't in her room, and he accidentally spilled it on her music sheets. Later at breakfast, Shinra announced that Ren had been fired, and Mihato decided to leave with him. Miyu quickly urged her to reconsider and asked Shinra what Ren had done. Shinra tossed the rune sheet on the table and said that a butler who interfered with his master's business didn't deserve to keep his position. Just then, Colonel came to inform her that it was time to leave, so she got up and followed him, leaving everyone in the room to stare at Ren with pity. Later, Mihato asked if something had happened the previous day, and Ren claimed he'd just pissed Shinra off during their date. He didn't want to tell her that he'd met their father or that the man had told him to return home with her. When Ren refused his request, he threatened to drop by the mansion, and the alarm bells in Ren's head went off. He told his father that his kind wasn't welcome in such a peaceful environment, but his father didn't care. He said he was staying at a hotel in the city and asked Ren to call him when he was ready to return home. Back in the present, Ren left the bathroom so Mihato wouldn't continue questioning him. But then he met Miyu in the hallway, and she told him not to leave the mansion yet because his offense wasn't serious enough to cost him his job. Meanwhile, Shinra's mentor watched her while she worked, and he told himself that she still hadn't figured out what she was missing. When she returned home in the evening, Yume brought her a drink and began massaging her shoulders. She also made small talk, but Shinra saw through her and said she wasn't interested in talking about Ren. Yume apologized for trying to push the subject, but told Shinra she hadn't been her usual self for days and hated it. After she ran off, Shinra wondered what Yume meant, as she refused to believe she was acting any differently. Soon, Miyu showed up and, to her surprise, willingly took off her clothes. She then asked Shinra to reconsider Ren's dismissal, and Shinra angrily asked why everyone wanted Ren to stay. Miyu said it was because he was selfless and made everyone's life better. She then advised Shinra to stop being stubborn and do what was right, but Shinra didn't respond. Once she was alone, she took out the photo from the date and began staring at it as she recalled what Ren said to her. She knew he was right, but her stubbornness wouldn't allow her to admit it, so she ended up laughing and shedding a few tears. The following morning, she announced that Ren could keep his position, and everyone was very happy. However, his father's threat was still lingering over his head, so he decided to contact him. Later, he went to see Shinra, and she admitted she was a bit snappy because the pressure of the show was getting to her. When she noticed he didn't respond as usual, she asked if something was bothering him. Ren refused to tell her, but he apologized, saying he just didn't want to cause her trouble. After she dismissed him, Ren returned to his room and said he would settle things the next day before the concert. However, it seemed he had taken too long, as his father came to the mansion looking for him. He quickly directed him elsewhere so they could talk, failing to notice that Ben Isu and Chihiro were watching him. As they were deciding what to do, Shinra showed up and ordered them to follow Ren. At that time, Ren was trying to convince his father to leave, but that pissed him off, and he began beating him up. He said that Ren still had to pay him for raising him and that he didn't deserve to be happy. Just then, Shinra and Ben Isu arrived, and when they saw what was happening, Ben Isu rushed forward and screamed at Ren to fight back. The boy didn't respond, and it wasn't until she got closer that she realized how much power his dad held over him. The man then ordered him to bring his sister to him, and like a robot, Ren stood up and began walking towards the house. Shinra told him not to go, but he said it was the only way he knew how to avoid causing her any trouble, and that was the moment she snapped. She demanded to know where the boy who scolded her had gone and asked if he was truly going to abandon her after promising to serve her. That statement seemed to jolt Ren awake, but then his father had to say something. Ben Isu punched him for that, but the man retaliated, which triggered Ren, and for the first time in his life, he stood up to his father. The petty man tried to use reverse psychology on him, but Ren was no longer susceptible to his tricks, and he told him that they were through. Ren then went to kiss Shinra's hand to show his loyalty, and she told his father that Ren belonged to her family. The man reminded Ren that he was his flesh and blood, but Ren assured him that it didn't matter. Just then, the others arrived, so the man gave up on trying to convince Ren, but Ben Isu still beat him up. After Shinra and Ren left for the concert, Mihato spoke to her father, and he admitted that after they ran away, he realized how lonely he was. Ren was the only one who stuck by him through everything, and now he didn't know how he'd survive. Mihato advised him to clean himself up and promised to let him see Ren if he changed for good. Later, at the concert, Shinra cast away her worries as she conducted, and her mentor told himself that she had regained her spark. After the concert, she went backstage and, when she saw Ren waiting for her, walked up to him and kissed him, leaving him flustered. The following day, Ren accidentally walked into the bathroom while Bensiu and Nadase were using it, and all hell broke loose. Chihiro even got caught in the crossfire, and Miyu, who walked in on the scene, didn't scold them. Instead, she ordered Ren to change into some shorts and a shirt and made him do tricks for her. The boy managed to escape at some point, But then Yume and Shinra began ordering him about. Before he could move, Miyu and the others opened the door, and Miyu asked why he had run. As if being cornered wasn't bad enough, Ajeha swooped in through the window, sparking an argument over who Ren belonged to. That's all for today. But do you think Ren should just start a harem since all the girls obviously want him? If you got this far, comment the name of your favorite girl. Also, don't forget to check out this next video.